right, so I just wanted to kind of start with a
Okay.
pretty general question here, kind of overviewing the whole Camden Yards experience. But I know that taxpayer opposition, the whole movement was kind of your thing. That was one of the only people that we had on our interview list to interview was someone like you, a part of the taxpayer opposition. But why did you feel that you were the one to sort of lead this movement or be the forefront of
Well,
this?
first, I think I'd pick the word citizen. It's not, yes, taxpayer, but it's not about. It's about citizen and what is and was needed. So it was a citizen activism. I lived from starting in 1980. I lived in Ridgely's Delight, so literally across the street from the stadium site. And my best recollection was that at first it was just something's supposed to be happening. Let's try to reach out and get involved in the process, and that over before too long had me opposing. And I don't remember exactly how I first started reaching out and meeting people. We within I just happened to look by the end of '86. We had formed a corporation, Marylanders for Sports Saturday Inc., and it just seemed like there were more important things to spend money on, and other ways to deal with it, and we just so that's how. And I don't remember. I've long been involved in activism and stuff, but I just part of it was I guess that I was right there in Ridgely's Delight, right next to it.
Can you tell me a little bit more about the Maryland for Sports Sanity Inc.? I read it in a few different newspaper articles. I was kind of
Yeah,
interested in what
it's
that
the
was.
corporation we founded. There was the I don't, I don't again. It's so the details are a bit hazy how we did it, or what exactly what process. But I think we did first have some just the certain amount of meetings and whatever. And let's form a corporation to do it. Remember I'm proudly a liberal person. Had a vice president. He's long been gone now, Alex Ogrins, who was from the conservative political side, and at some point we just I decided we needed to form an organization, and I pulled it out because I'm very it came up with that there's two. The question is this a good investment? With different you're spending and the money, is it a good investment? Um, is it the best way to accomplish what you're trying to do there? And even as it is, even if it's a best way to try to do about the stadium, and I don't think it was. We there are other things that we could have done, but even if it's a good investment, what else could you do with that money if you got X amount of public dollars? Even though it's something, is this the way you should spend it? Should we spend it on schools? Should we spend it on transportation? Should we feed people? All those sort of things. So, and I'm proud when I look back at the Article Corporation that we had that two-part. Is this the best way to do that? And if I remember right, even back then already, it was when the Colts skedaddled out of town, the city was given the right to take public control of a sports franchise, and we should have done that, and then either operated it publicly or sold it back to somebody. You get to hire and fire and this and that, but you can't move out on us without our agreement. So it wasn't the best way to do it, and even if it was, what other investments are there? But in part, the town, there was the rawness of the Colts leaving, I guess, that to the power brokers, whatever, were very important.
And you mentioned some of the other investments that could have been made, like on public transportation, schools. Was that what did you think specifically?
I don't know that I had
at the
a.
time?
I don't know that I had a particular.
No interest.
No, I would have had interest. I was not. I don't know though. I can't. I don't know. I don't. I can't say what if you gave me $200 million in 1985, which is $200 million is what they were saying the two stadiums were going to cost. They ended up being about $400 million. What I would have said would have been the best thing to do, I don't know. And anyway, democracy is about consulting with people and figuring out. But so I don't, but there are other needs than
Yeah. And speaking of newspapers, I was talking about earlier, reading about you and a few of them. You there was one that mentioned that you had a crusade to allow voters to decide by referendum whether Twin Stadium should be built in Camden Yards. Do you recall that at all? Can you talk
Well,
about
yeah, no,
that?
we did. I doubt that I used the word crusade.
That was the article.
Okay, yeah, yeah. There's. As a Jew, I hear crusade as being the victim thereof rather than the participant in. But that's a different issue. But yeah, we went to court trying to. I'm trying to remember what the state constitution and what there was I'm it was the right to take things to referendum, and in what I recall to being a rather tortured opinion by the Court of Appeals, they said no because money was involved. You didn't have the right to take it. I assume that if I sat down now and would still agree that that was a very tortured opinion. I remember thinking that if the Court of Appeals had done anything other than that, that governor wouldn't have given them another dollar to buy toilet paper for the courthouse. So maybe that's why they had to do what they did. I'm sorry if that. I hope that isn't offensive. But we did take it to court, and we lost. I've said at times I think that would an embarrassment to Maryland law that the court ruled against us.
Yeah. Eli, you want to next section?
So, you're saying item this and then flip back to this?
Yeah, I would say wait, go back up. Start with that, yeah.
Anyway. So when did you first become aware of the proposal for Camden Yards, and can you take me through what your initial thoughts were?
Yeah, as I say, I moved into Ridgely's Delight in 1980. I grew up in Montgomery County, but went to Philadelphia for college, decided I was a city boy, and came here for law school. Graduated in '76, and in 1980, by 1980 I was back in town. And I think as best I can recall, again, a long time ago, it was okay. Across the street, they're talking about doing some major something. Let's get involved. Let's have a say. And I think we had a number of meetings, and that grew into thinking about that this was not the best thing to do.
And what would you say, initially those first primary concerns were?
I'm thinking. My best guess is just that there's so many things that we need to do. The city already was struggling in roads, housing, poverty. Hopefully, I was thinking already then about maybe trying to have clean air instead of the Bresco thing it was already open in '86 or not, but I mean we live here now. We're under dirty air from the Bresco thing, which is not the current name, but what do you call it? So I don't what exactly I would have. I just can't. I can't say, but just.
Out of everything there, it seems like the ballpark isn't what you thought the most important.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. We had that absolutely, particularly since I have some sports fanness, if that's a word, in me, but again, since we had this as the Colts, there was like 1 week in 84, 83, whatever it was the Colts, when the beginning of the week the legislature passed the right for the city to take, and then the next day the city took the in fact maybe let's see, I'm trying to remember whether the court case that we talked about, whether that touches in, whether these two combine. But anyway, in the course of a week, the city gives the state gives the city the right to take the team, and the city acts to take the team, but the courts decide by the time the mayor had signed that, the vans were rolling, and the team was literally not in the city anymore to take. But we had that right to take, and I've always thought if it's that important that we have to have, why should we be at the mercy of really rich people, whether they're nice guys or not nice guys, and don't have to be men or women, whatever. Why should we be at their mercy? I mean, talking about, but I mean, even now, we just gave another $35 million to the Ravens to build fancy facilities for the high-priced ticket buyers. Why should we do that? I mean, it's just that there's better uses for a better way to have kept the team in town, and better way and more important uses for the money.
So how did you and others that were opposed to it go about making that case and pushing back on the proposal?
Whatever we could do to get attention, and we formed the corporation. I do remember there was some meeting. Seems to me it was somewhere around here, so maybe it was them putting out a proposal. I remember being outside the building talking to cameras and seeing on the camera that I was being identified as Bob Marker, and my name is Bill Marker. So during a break, I said to the reporter or cameraman, whatever, my name is Bill, and he changed it. And that's not about me. It's about, back then, we had something called phone books. And I wanted somebody to be able to look. If they looked for Bob or Robert Marker, they wouldn't have gotten to me. If they looked for Bill or William Marker, they could get to me. So whatever it could do, there were it seems to me it's many times, it's certainly a number of times, that in the Sun, the front page is a picture of William Donald Schaefer and why do this and da-da-da-da. And deeply buried in it is Bill Marker in opposition said such and such. So that was a chance to be seen. Whatever, it was long before internet. Internet or anything. But we did whatever we could to get the word out, and we tried.
So kind of bouncing off of a little bit of what you were just talking about in the media and the public perception of it, did you think that the media portrayed your movement, your taxpayer opposition sort of movement, in a good light, or do you think they portrayed it at all, honestly, or do you think they were kind of on the governor's side? They were more.
I have the recollection that frequently, the pro side was the front page of the paper. We were deeply buried. I have a very strong memory of, and so that whether that was Press Being Unfair or just, they were all the big names, all the whatever. The one major event was, I think it was one hearing in Annapolis for both the Senate and the House and stuff like that. And I remember going there and being prepared to be, I was working, Senator Jack Lapidus was the leading senator in opposition. And we were waiting. And you would think that we would have had a chance to say something. And we did. But I think it was at least 4 hours into the hearing. There were Bennett Williams and whoever else, and Mayor Burns and stuff. So instead of, okay, one side speak for an hour and then the other side speak for an hour, it was, and was that Bennett Williams? I remember that at least one or two of the people, the legislators, had been law students of his or whatever, and they, wanted to talk about that and everything. So that's hard to overcome that, and that certainly, but that was at least a kink in the system that the opponents at the hearing were put back to. We had a chance to be heard, but how many of the legislators, how much of the media, how much of anybody was still in that room when we got a chance to be heard?
So I didn't want to cut you off, but essentially you're saying it wasn't really a fair fight.
Certainly, yeah. There's certainly elements of that. That's right. Trying to say no. Yeah. I mean, I was not a person of power. Alex was not a person of power. Um, I mean, Jack Lapidus was around, and he was a senator and stuff. But it was the I'm very proud of trying to stop, and I believe, and I've continued to have. Occasionally, it pops up, but it was not the fact that the things got built doesn't mean that that we failed. That we at least tried to raise issues.
And through raising these issues, there was another article that was published who said that the people would fight back and that there would be public outcry over this decision to build Camden Yards. Did you see that at all? Did you think that happened? Do you think the people were maddened by the decision?
I don't remember any big outcry per se. I think it still percolates through. I think that so here, what are we, 30 years later, whatever, when I tried to talk about don't spend another $35 million on the Ravens in 2025, I think a lot of people here have heard it and said, oh yeah, you're right, of course, and this and that. Didn't work now either. But so yeah, there is this. I is it a sports industrial complex? Is it, I don't know, whatever. It's excuse me. It's hard. It's we have elements of democracy, but it's hard if the powers that be are trying to do and money is flowing and this and that and there was the again the I don't know, there would have been different, but the whole rawness of the Colts leaving and what that meant to people who probably weren't terribly worried about where their next meal was coming, but not that they were all rich and stuff, but what that that was a major wound to the psyche and couldn't let that happen again.
Yeah. And then looking back, is there any way that you think that the funding could have been structured differently where you might have agreed with the stadium being built? Is there any way that
No, I
would have been
don't.
more acceptable?
I don't think so. I think there was one originally. The original assumption would be back then most of the stadiums that were being built. I think this is correct. They were doing one stadium for baseball and football, and I kind of remember being at something somewhere during the process, being at a meeting, and they started talking about two separate stadiums. Stadia was always kind of a question. What is the plural? And I remember having kind of some feeling that maybe the hope was that, we'll talk two stadiums, and the people, and the opposition will get a victory. We'll go back to one stadium, so we'll get the stadium, but the opposition will say, but I don't think I ever thought that just building, spend a few dollars less to build one stadium. I don't think I ever thought that was not. If it was a ploy, I don't think it was a ploy that caught me. Whether it was meant to be a ploy, I don't know.
So, just in conjunction with that, what were your opinions on Memorial Stadium as a whole? Did you have any?
Oh yeah, I mean, if I remember, you read what they put forward. One of their major arguments, there was the implicit threat that the team would leave, which, and of course they'll say, but they never said they were going to, but they never were going to sign a long-term contract either or anything, and there was a shortage of women's restrooms at Memorial Stadium. I figure for $200 million could have built a few ladies' rooms. And I forget one of the things, but that was one of the things. And there was this, oh my God, Edward Bennett Williams, when he comes up from Washington, it takes him a half hour or whatever to get from the harbor up to 33rd Street. So, I mean, those were, as far as I could, it seems to me the stated reasons, if I remember right, the stated reasons why it had to be done don't really add up. It's only that if we don't do it, we could lose the team. And again, we already had the power to to take the team, so we had an alternative, but nobody ever, it doesn't get taken seriously.
Alright, so shifting a little more now towards still reflecting on back then, but based on everything that's happened to Baltimore, you know, what the city is, how would you say the result of Camden Yards fared compared to what you were thinking it would do for the city?
It's still, if that money had been spent on better things, I mean, Baltimore's a wonderful city, and I'm very happy to be here. But I joke that I think my friends think I must get killed on the streets every week walking around. I don't. Not that nothing ever happens. But so evidently we haven't reached perfection despite this happening. And again, the question is, so two things. One, obviously there's still plenty of things we could do, whether it's, better transportation, the better schools, feeding people. We could walk out here in 90 seconds and see some, not at the moment, but we have a place for people experiencing homelessness living at the corner here that I pass by most of the time I leave my neighborhood. So we still have these problems. Somehow they haven't been solved by this. And then even now, in the last couple of years, it ain't $200 million or $400 million. We've just given another $1.2 billion. Yeah, so just think in current terms. Anybody think about it. If you have $1.2 billion to help Baltimore City and environs, is that what you would do with it? Or is there something else that fixing the roads, again, the schools, feeding people, again, since we're now needing more energy because of AI, how about we spend the money to do a serious survey of everybody's house and insulation and whatever, and how much energy, if we spent that to save energy so we could have clean air, how important would that be? It was wrong to do then, and again, I understand rooting for teams and stuff, but it's not. There was an alternative, and nobody knows for sure how the city did, but we're a sovereign state. We have the power to have given the city to do it, and and let somebody else operate it. Or I know somebody who would go ahead and say have public operation. I'm not worried, but would love to have the debate about, okay, we've taken control of the teams. Do we let somebody else operate it, or do we operate it ourselves? So no, it's. I guess yes. I'm very proud of it. It's wrong. It is true that if you look at if you dig through and you find the papers that we produced in opposition, it pictures a modern spaceship of a station, kind of towering over the city, and instead they built this. They dug the ground down and they did the brick thing and this and that. So it's nicer than having a spaceship a block from the harbor, or to whatever blocks it is. But it's still, if it was such a great thing, why doesn't everybody think we're a fantastic, wonderful place? A certain guy is sitting in a certain house in Washington. I forget what were the words he had for Baltimore a few years ago. Terrible, terrible. So apparently, we have other uses, other things that we could spend money on.
So if the debate,
Or even tax, or even they talk about we're a high tax state. Could produce taxes too.
so if a similar debate comes up in the modern day as it has with taxpayer funded stadiums, your reasonings for opposing it seem like it would be the same type of thing as it was back then, right?
Yes. Where did I put it? Wait a minute. Where did I put the cardboard? Oh, I forgot I have this. Where did I put? There it is. You want to talk about current day? 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, whatever, there was an edition of of the Baltimore Banner, which is our online newspaper now. One edition had several stories. One was, again, we're talking February of 2025. One edition, one story was cutting the blueprint for education, cutting education funding, because we have a real budget crunch, the state this year. One article was massive cutting of federal jobs, which hurting Maryland, was a focus on Social Security. And then another article was, and they would say it's not another, but approving another $35 million to the Ravens. Arguably part of the original $600 million that was done, but still, they had to get approval, so it's doing. So in all these, so you put those three things together, and so I went down and testified at the Board of Public Works just 2 weeks ago. Very proud that my wife went with me, and I'd like to give you a copy of the testimony. But we produced this saying, cut education, Social Security jobs, 35 million more for the Ravens. So does it apply today? Absolutely, yes.
And then shifting a little bit towards, back towards when you were making the push, what would you say some of your biggest obstacles and toughest opponents throughout the process were?
Well, I mean, I guess the name that most stands out, is William Donald Schaefer, who was not a good guy. And I'm fairly clear that as the year the stadium opened, I had got a low-level contractual job with the state, and when I'm pretty sure, my guess is that when he found out, before long, I no longer had that job with the state. And I remember there were twice run-ins with him. I was running for city council one time, and he heard that he was, a friend was also running down at Locust Point, and he said, Schaefer's down there, and so I came down. I don't know whether I was going to whether I was going to try to shake his hand, I don't remember, something like that. And I remember walking down Ford Avenue, whatever, and Schaefer sees me, and he walks across the street to get to the other side, so he doesn't have to. What was I gonna do? I'm not a terrible guy. Whatever. So he was a bad guy, but the people are behind him, whatever, too, and whatever the people with money want to entertain themselves. Entertain themselves, and so I don't know. I don't think. I don't know that there's some organizer who could have made it happen. I don't know. I'm proud of what I tried, and very happy to be asked about it now. So I don't know, and I hope people would, sitting here in 2025, if ever the time we need to remember in democracy to fight and push for things, this is a strong time that we need to do it.
And then, so, given your thoughts on William Donald Schaefer, would you say it's frustrating for you when, a lot of people hold him so highly?
Oh, yeah. What more can I say? Literally, I don't want to focus on it, but there was sometime within the first month after the stadium opened. Well, I know one time I think I got a phone message left. There was somebody from the Washington Post. What did I think about the stadium now that it was open? And since I had just gotten that contractual job as public defender, working with children in need of assistance matters. What do you call it? I didn't return the call. But another time the phone rang and I picked it up and it was a Sun reporter. And I said something to the effect of, well, I'm now working for the state. I really don't want to say very much. But I won't go to any games this year. And so there's this article that, not a giant article, I don't think it was a front page article, but about what opponents think now. And I was not, there must have been legislators first or something. But in the middle, there's the paragraph that says, Marker says he doesn't want to talk, not going to talk about it now because he's working for the state, but he's not going to go to any games this year. Somehow that got to the attention of Schaefer's minions, or my best guess is to him himself. And before long, I wasn't working for the state no more. No, and of the 3 times I voted for Republicans in my life, 2 of them were against Schaefer because he was really a Republican anyway. Not that Republicans can't be siding with me on this issue, but he does not deserve the praise that he gets. And if it was so great, I don't think he cared about education. Maybe if he put more time and energy into education, and I don't know. So no, he does not deserve any. If it were up to me, he would not have a place of honor by the harbor. Although, you could make an argument. Obviously, he's very involved with the harbor and deserves it in that respect. But
All right, so these are kind of the last few questions wrapping up. We actually are going to be asking just about everyone that we interview these sets of questions.
Okay.
The first one is, do you remember what you were doing on opening day, April 6th, 1992?
Well, I know that I think I was out of town. I think it was a conscious plan to be out of town. I don't remember exactly where. I don't think I'm getting my story. I think this is the right thing. And my car, I guess, had been left on Washington Boulevard where I lived and everything. And when I came back a couple of days later, the car, I think they must have had a opening day. I guess that's when maybe because President came or whatever. They cleared the road for whatever. They maybe put up a 1-day notice to move, but I was out of town. So my car wasn't there anymore. And after I came back in, so I went to the impoundment lot and looked all around the impoundment lot and couldn't find it and everything. Later found out that the nun I lived with, there was a nun who lived the floor above, and she was a good friend in this. It was a house with like 4 apartments. I don't know if I'd left my key with her or whatever, but whether it was towed or whether she had, but the car was only, was like a kind of parking lot in a different part of Ridgely's. The car had been moved to there, but I didn't know that. But so I had deliberately, I think, gotten out of town for the opening day. Didn't want to be around for that.
So you don't necessarily remember what the feeling was on opening day around the city, right?
Because I was out of
You
town.
were out of town.
Yeah.
But have you been in Camden Yards?
Oh yeah.
The first time you went in Camden Yards, the first time ever that you saw it completed, what were your reactions then?
I don't remember per se. I do try to go generally once a year or something, and whatever. But it's I don't think I ever forget how problematic it is. But yeah, and other than one of my nephew went to one football game when my nephew had a ticket and went with him, but not otherwise gone there. But football is not that it's problematic for just the game that it is. But
do you think it's especially problematic for this area?
No, I mean the traffic.
Wise,
Oh, traffic. I mean traffic, and it's a real issue. That I mean, it definitely impacts living here. Usually, we do have to, when you live here, you have to think about games. If you're scheduling something in the summer, is it a home game? Is it not? Football is even more, and we're a little bit farther away from football. Don't have that much, but if I look wrong time, I go out Scott Street can be really. So there's those impacts on life and existence around here. But also for some people, of course, it's a reason to be here because you can walk over and do that and be involved. And there's occasion we did. Who was it? Who was it last year? Was it Springsteen was performing at the stadium, and we walked over just to. We didn't go to the event, but went over to to listen a little bit from outside. I think we were at the Brooks Robinson statue. I remember living in, before 97, still living in Ridgely's. The Pope was at the stadium, and so it was just so loud. I heard the Pope because just the sound system coming all the way through and stuff. So it's kind of, I'm very glad I don't live in dull, boring suburbia, so I'm not saying that but that this thing should be out in the burbs. It's nice to have investment in the city, but it should be better investment and everything. But I guess there's a lot of people who, well, the only reason they anywhere near downtown Baltimore is because of the stadium. Well, they're missing a lot if they don't. If you come down to the stadium a lot and you've never been to Fort McHenry, you're missing one of the nicest places in the country, both as a park, as history, whatever. The harbor, we need more for walking around, but yeah.
I think that's all about we got, unless you have any follow-ups or anything.
No, I think
Yeah,
that's
We're good.
I think that was good. Yeah, I appreciate it.
Thank you. I'm happy to
Good work.
do if you have a follow-up. Excuse me, if you, what was the other? If I have 3 of these, one is gonna go in the Fluker room. If you think it'd be nice to have one for,
Strictly history.
okay, well,
Strictly
since it came up
history,
in there, I
so-
just trying to
So-
think. So a copy of the testimony from 2 weeks ago was not